Frickin' HOA Karen. I have the biggest Karen living in my neighborhood, so we bought our home 3 years ago. At the time of the purchase, we signed a set of bylaws for the subdivision that were laid out in the 60s when the neighborhood was being built. These rules included things like you couldn't have a separate building such as a shed, a pool house, carport, or garage. Now, several, and I would even go as far to say the majority of homes, including mine and my grandparents who moved in '77, have RV covers, we have carports, sheds or workshops, and the house across the street has a pool house. So, needless to say, the original bylaws were never upheld. In October of 2018, we had our little girl at 26 weeks and spent the next 4 months in NICU. In December, on one of the rare occasions that I came home, a neighbor came by with some paperwork saying that there was a house renting on Verbo and it needed to be taken care of. I needed to sign this paper and get it back to her by 12/31 so she could get it filed. I ignored the issue. I just don't care what someone else does with their property as long as it doesn't affect me, which this never did. The house was rarely rented out, and when it was always a really quiet one. I never heard anything, never saw trash thrown about, and so on. Anyway, apparently she gathered enough signatures to amend the original bylaws to include a ban on renting Verbo. She then took the homeowner, who lived in a different state by the way, to court, won, and had it put in the judgment that they had to sell their freaking house. So at this same time, she came up with the idea of starting an HOA. That way, our neighborhood could stay safe and be able to take care of any problems that would arise. No elaboration there. October of 2019, she then began collecting signatures to add a new amendment to include forming an HOA. She and another lady in our neighborhood who is a notary collected and notarized signatures. Once she believed that she had her 2/3 vote that she thinks she needed, she filed the paperwork. She had been having neighborhood meetings, and I know of 19 of 47 homeowners who were never notified of meetings, until I found out about one and I posted about a sign at the end of the entrance and exit of the subdivision. Once we all showed up at this meeting, we were informed that the HOA had passed, and we were all obligated to follow the rules and pay the dues that would be determined. I, along with the other 19 homeowners, made it very clear we were not part of any HOA and would not be participating or paying any dues. Shortly after this, I received an email saying that board members would be voted on via email and a $25 yearly due was due, and I could make my check payable to her name. Other homeowners received an email saying that there was a one-time initiation fee of $115 plus the $25 yearly due, and thanking them for their contribution for legal fees for taking the Verbo house to court. Like, how much money has this lady got out of people? All this to say, I checked her math multiple ways. Votes per lot, votes per fraction of a lot, votes per number of owners, like every stupid way possible. The only way I can think that I didn't do it was by value of the home to value of the entire subdivision. Anyway, she never had over a 60% vote in favor of starting a POA, or Property Owners Association, HOA. I've called her out on it, and she refuses to acknowledge it. She is a real estate agent, and there are a couple of houses in the neighborhood for sale. I looked at the listings, and I noticed that one, who signed for the HOA, has association fees of $25. The other home, who did not sign for the HOA, does not have association fees listed. She's also now, well, I'm sorry, I don't know for sure who, someone has called the city on all of us heathens that won't sign the HOA. So the city has been writing warnings to almost everyone for something or another. Mine for a pile of brush left after cleaning out a flower bed, and my grass for being over 6 inches. Neighbor for a stack of tile in her driveway, and another for having a ladder and an inflatable boat on a dolly in their yard. Another for leaves in the ditch, and so many other crazy offenses. Obviously, she's calling the city because she knows the HOA can't do anything. Or at least she knows that we know she can't do anything. My concern is she's taking advantage of the elderly in the neighborhood that feel like the HOA is making them safe. She asked my elderly neighbor if she needed any groceries since she couldn't be getting out with all the COVID around. My neighbor said no, she was fine, and then the lady turned around and said, "Oh, okay, well, do you have your $25 for dues?" My neighbor's exact words were, "I gave it to her. I'm afraid of what she would do to me if I didn't." Not that she thought she was being physically threatened, but she literally thinks she could lose her home over not paying these bullies. Is there anything I can try to give or say to these elderly to make them not feel threatened by her or the other board members? I think that someone that specializes in HOA law would love to have a word with Karen. I think she is just trying to push people that she feels like won't stand up for themselves and take advantage of them. And then when somebody does and actually gets onto her, we'll take her down. What would you do? Lawyer up? How would you handle this one? It's called Mel, Karen, and Property Lines by Shortfinger Dizzy. I'm a senior construction superintendent in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The project I'm currently on is a 13-acre site smack in the middle of an extremely affluent area to the north of Dallas. 3 weeks ago, a city inspector that we'll call Joe came into the site office and said that they received a complaint about a sprinkler and soaker line being damaged during excavation for the fire lane. He, my landscaper, and myself went to investigate, discovered where a small fitting had blown out of the line. The landscaper repaired it. I went up to knock on the door to explain to them the issue and informed them of the repair. I got no answer at the door, so I left a card and a note asking them to call me, and they never did. A week later, Joe comes in and mentions that they've reached out again about the noise from the equipment, which is odd because anyone with heavy equipment is currently working on the other end of the property. I again went to speak with them, got no answer at the door, and I left a card again. Yesterday, in walks Joe to tell me that they're complaining about our construction fence, that it's on their property and killing their grass. The fence is 12 feet from their fence, and our specs call for it to be a minimum of 15 feet from the property line. So I pull up our CAD files on the survey plat so I can make sure that we have it placed exact, and realize that their wood fence is 4 feet onto our property. Their house is about 14 inches onto our property too. So during all of this, I get an email from the city asking me to place the construction fence squarely on our property line. The email is sent to me, the apparent homeowner, Joe, and my project manager. I brought the surveyors back out yesterday to pinpoint our property corners and to give us some 10 feet offsets, reference points 10 feet east of the property line for line of sight to measure from. I knocked on the homeowner's door again, and I got no answer. Mind you, every time there were cars in the drive. Fast forward to this morning, my fence crew showed up and they began moving the fence onto the property line, which takes 31 inches, or 2 feet 7 inches, of their driveway, and 18 feet of the road where it ends at the property was previously a cul-de-sac. The client finally reached out, or more accurately, came to the site office in a huff. I explained the issue, I showed him the plat, and he left with some unkind words flowing from him like diesel exhaust on a steep incline. I put a pause on the fence relocation just to soothe the wound. My project manager called him, and I called the city right-of-way engineer and our client. We set up a meeting that just ended. He claimed that our plat was wrong. The engineer and everyone else disagreed. The back and forth went on long enough for the client, who is extremely laid back and quiet gentleman, to finally speak up and basically say, "Hey, we're just going to go ahead and sell you the property that you've stolen at current market value plus 10%. In this area, that's not cheap. If that's not acceptable, we'll just have you move your fence, cut out your driveway, and use the east side of your home for advertisement. Or you can back off, let these guys work, and we'll give you lifetime use of the area that you currently occupy, so long as there's no more hassling of any kind." The guy asked me if we'd move the fence back out, and I told him no. I agreed to take it off his driveway, but the street and the green space belonged to us. We only did what he asked us to do. The engineer who asked me to move it agreed. Entitled Mom Trying to Own My Property, posted by Educational Aioli 944. This is a very complicated story, and I'm not sure if they are the entitled ones or me. My parents acquired several assets a long time ago. At some point, they were almost broken due to my mom's bad decisions. In order to protect the assets, the best option was to put everything on my name, as I was the only minor at that time in the family. I was not even 10, and there's at least a 10-year gap with my sisters. But my mom, who never wanted me to have anything, decided that everything should be on my siblings' name. Moving time forward, when I was still underage, my aunt by my dad's side decided to gift him a property, but because she didn't like my mom, the property ended up under my name. There's a couple of stories, not sure which one is true, regarding this property. So the first story they have is that my dad's dad bought the property, and at some point he was short of cash, so he asked my dad for money. He did give it to him, even if he had several kids and was already married. My mom was not happy about it, and my dad's dad could pay the mortgage. Nobody knows if my grandfather returned the money. Some people said that Aunt A took it with Uncle B, not married siblings. When my grandfather died, A inherited the property. There were conflicts with the will, and later on, she gave it to me. So the second story that they have lined up is that my dad bought it as a gift to my grandfather when he was still single and no kids. My dad paid the mortgage all his life, even after he married my mom and had kids. The property was always on my grandfather's name, and when he died, A inherited it, and later on, she gave it to me. My parents have lived in the property several years. They no longer live there, and they have put money onto that, and they don't pay rent at all, but they cover the maintenance cost. That was the verbal agreement that I had with them. Now, my sister bought a property in the same city. The property is nice, it's just in the same building with her in-laws. She's quite old, and the banks won't give her a mortgage now, over 50. Having a property in that building has caused a lot of problems to my sister, and she would like to have a different property so she's no longer close to her in-laws. On the other hand, my mom has always considered my property as her property, and she wants to give a property in that city to my sister A, but she can't do it because she doesn't have the money to buy another one, and I won't put it on my sister's name. Another agreement is that we will keep whatever is on our name, so I don't get anything but that property, which actually comes from A, not my parents. And my dad also owns half of another property. My mom tried to buy the rest from B and put it under my sister's name, but B put a very high price. I think he didn't want to sell it like that. So the question is, who's the entitled one here? Am I the entitled one because I don't want to give away the property? In other words, does it really belong to my parents? Or is my mom? Ooh, here's a really good piece of information. This will settle the story. It was given to you by your aunt, so you're the legal owner, not your mother, comment says, and OP replies, yes, legally the property is mine, but my mom considers it hers because my dad fully paid the mortgage, story 2, when he was already with my mom. She has put a lot of money in renovations when living there, like a new bathroom, 2 bedrooms that were isolated, new windows, a new kitchen, and there's now GCH, on top of maintenance expenses that they, my dad and her, still pay. I should have mentioned that I have the property, but not the right to use it freely. It belongs to my dad. A wanted it like that, so my dad could use the property, but my mom wouldn't own it. My dad can't sell it. I mean, hey, if your name is on it legally, that is legally yours. What do you think? Karen tried to get a free hotel stay with a lawsuit posted by Little Motion, and it has an update. Oh my gosh, here we go. For context, I'm a 22-year-old woman, but I've been told that I look around 17. I work for a boutique hotel and resort as a front desk supervisor. Our resort is separated into 3 buildings: our hotel, our pools and spa, and our restaurant. I'm used to pretty high maintenance people for the most part. I've worked in customer service since leaving high school, so not a lot bothers me, and I can usually diffuse stressful situations easily. Basically, I've seen my fair share of Karens. I'm not sure how it is at other hotels, but at my hotel, reservations that are made for the same day as check-in are treated with a bit more security since we've been scammed before. It's a security policy to make a copy of the driver's license at check-in in case the credit card turns out to be stolen. That way, we have a picture of the guest. Today, we had a same-day reservation come through a third party, something like Expedia or Priceline. No biggie. When the guest comes in, she seems nice enough. No typical Karen haircut or anything like that. I go through the motions, ask to see her ID, and to get a credit card for incidentals. She hands them over, and I set the ID on our scanner. "What are you doing?" she snaps. "Hey, I'm just making a copy of your ID for the reservation." "You can't do that." I thought, then I took the ID out to double check that it wasn't a military ID, which is illegal to copy in the US. It was a regular state driver's license. "I'm sorry, ma'am, it's a security policy. We do this with all of our same-day reservations. You think I'll scam you? You treat my people like this? My mother is disabled and you're making her wait in the car. To clarify, she was of Hispanic or Latina descent, one of the two. No ma'am, we do this every same day. She cuts me off. Get me your manager. I sigh and radio my manager to the front desk. Once she's there, Karen goes into this long rant about how we were stealing her personal information and how it was against the law to make copies of a person's ID. My manager looked at her and then at me. She's the woman on the ID. Just go ahead and check them in. I did as I was told and checked in the group of 4 into one of our handicap accessible rooms. These rooms were bigger with low-profile beds and roll-in showers for wheelchairs. Around an hour later, Karen called the desk asking for an extra blanket, asking me to turn up the thermostat for her because she couldn't figure it out, asking for extras of the free coffee in the room and whatever else that she could get for free. No biggie, that's what I'm here for. Now, here's where I nearly snapped. Later in the evening, she called me asking if we had a step stool for her mother to use to get into bed. Now, her mother was around my height, 5'7", and these beds were low profile already, but she was, for lack of better words, extremely overweight. So I believed it may be a bit more difficult for her to get from her motorized scooter onto the bed. I let them know that we didn't have a step stool in this building, but that I would be happy to call the spa and pool to see if they had one that we could use. The girl I spoke to at the desk told me that they had step stools in the locker rooms, but she didn't think that we could use them. She asked around and her manager said that they didn't have any extra stools. I called Karen. I'm sorry, but it doesn't look like that we have any stools on property for guest use in the rooms. For your inconvenience, I'd be happy to give you a meal voucher for dinner. She huffed. You have trash cans at your desk, right? Yes, ma'am, I have one trash can. That means you have others in the building that we can use. I paused, trying to figure out how that tied into our issue. I'm sorry, you do have 2 in your room, right? Well, yes, but they're small and not sturdy enough. If we double up, we can use that. Ma'am, you can't use our trash cans as step stools. Don't tell me what I can or can't do. You have 2 of those trash cans, don't ya? Not for that purpose, no. OP, you have empty rooms, don't ya? We do. Here's what you are going to do. You will go to these rooms and get me however many trash cans that I need. No, ma'am, I'm not going to do that. That made her mad. Excuse me? Those plastic trash cans are waste baskets for bathrooms. Even stacked up, they aren't made to hold the weight of an adult. That poses a risk for your mother, and if she fell off and got hurt, or if they broke and she cut her leg, that would make us liable. It's a major safety hazard. You know you're breaking the law by not making this room handicap accessible. The beds in those rooms are low profile and up to standard. She apparently didn't care and cut me off again, asking to be transferred to my manager. I let her know that I was acting manager since the woman she had spoken to at check-in had gone home for the night and wouldn't be in for 2 days. You can't be a supervisor or a manager, you're too young. Ma'am, I'm 22. No, you're not. Okay, I told her that I would be happy to help her come up with another solution. Call her at home. I'm sorry? You're going to call your manager at home, she demanded. I can try to reach her. No, you're going to reach her. And she hung up. No, I didn't get through to my manager. It was late into the night at that point. Of course I didn't. So I sent one of our maintenance men to the storage room, had him clean off one of his work stools, and had him take it to her. Was it clean enough? Of course not, but she took it. I'll sum the rest of tonight's drama since this post is long enough. Karen decided to ignore our non-smoking policy and smoked MJ inside the room, leading to complaints from other guests. When security confronted her, she told them that she would sue us for harassment because it was medical. We allowed her to smoke on her balcony, and she then threatened us for breaking a law because we didn't have a snack vending machine on our property. After many other complaints, she called me, telling me to call my manager to comp her room for her trouble. I told her I wouldn't call her due to the time and that I was, again, active manager. But that, if she would like, I would be happy to put all of tonight's events into an email for her. We got an update, here's the conclusion. So, this first part I got from my coworker that had taken over after I went home last night. According to him, aside from the noise complaints from the surrounding rooms, Karen decided her room service was not to her liking. So instead of calling the desk or setting the food in the hall for collection, she threw it against the wall, spraying ketchup all over our white walls and light brown carpet. In addition to this, her credit card had declined during night audit, meaning she was now staying there for free. A new credit card was put on file after I got in, followed by her saying that she wanted to split payment among the 4 adults staying in the room. Fine, can do. When the woman finally left, she stopped at the front desk to fight us on her rate and to put a third card on file. She had a double rate, signed for it, and authorized it, but she demanded a free stay for her troubles. When we told her that she'd signed an agreement to pay for both nights, she threw a fit, saying, "This is racist. With everything going on, you can't treat me like this. I am your customer. I will sue you for violating every law I've clocked during this stay." Ma'am, you've signed the contract. The contract, it's wrong. This place is horrible and I should have never stayed here. She then stormed out without giving us the credit card info. My manager called her, emailed her, and finally just charged the card that we had on file. I fully expect her to call me tonight to scream more, but at this point, I am so done. I'll be polite, but I'm not giving her any satisfaction. Imagine how different this story would have gone if OP did not stand up to Karen. She'd continue her Karen tirades, just doing it because, well, people let her do it. What do you think? How would you handle this if you were OP? Entitled woman demands treatment for her husband for free by ND25607. This OP writes great stories. You're going to love it. Quick intro. I'm a 34 female nurse for a doctor's office, and I also work overnights for an ER. I'm back again with another incident, and no, not our lovely Kevin. One of my pet peeves is that people assume urgent care is an ER. People, please be smart and understand that they're not the same. It's an ordinary Wednesday, with the usual patients coming in for treatment at the clinic when this couple comes into my clinic. My AA, administrative assistant, let's nickname her Nicole, greets them in and begins to register the patient after confirming that we do accept their insurance and will be able to treat them. He, let's call him Bob, he was really sweet, is wanting to be seen for a foot injury. We call him back to start getting his vitals, his blood pressure, temperature, height, and weight. Then, we send him back into the waiting room. After about 5 minutes, I begin to hear a commotion on the other side of the door into our waiting room. I take a brief pause with the patient and I go to see what all the chaos is. When I open the door, I see the patient's wife hurl a bottle of unknown substance at my poor administrative assistant. Here is what transpired. Karen says, "What?" Nicole says, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we cannot." Our administrative assistant, Nicole, gets cut off. Bob says, "I have VA insurance and Medicare." "Is the VA primary?" "Yeah, the VA sent me here." "No, your Medicare is primary," says to Bob. "Shut up. No, his Medicare is primary," and turns and says it to our administrative assistant, Nicole. Well, just give me a few minutes," Nicole replies. "I will verify the insurance. If you wouldn't mind, could you fill out this additional paperwork?" I approach Nicole, ask her what's going on. She tells me that they're here for a foot injury. They're angry that the VA wouldn't treat them and that she cannot get a straight answer out of them. So I go to the back real quick, grab something to photocopy, only to eavesdrop on the conversation. "Ma'am," Nicole starts, "I was able to confirm that the Medicare insurance is primary, so we will be able to run it under the Medicare policy. There's just a $40 copay due for today's visit." "Excuse me?" "I'm sorry, but it looks like there's a $40 copay due for today's visit. How would you like to take care of it today?" Very smugly, Karen replies, "I don't get paid until Friday, so you will have to wait until Friday." "I'm sorry, ma'am, but that is not how things work here. We cannot just treat you without being paid first." "Oh, it's fine. You can treat him. We have nowhere else to go, and you can just bill us." "I have VA coverage and Medicare. I shouldn't have to pay anything for today," Bob replies. "That would be correct, sir. Only we are not in network with the VA or TRICARE, so we wouldn't be able to bill VA for your care or your copay. Therefore, we would have to collect the $40 copay in order for you to be seen." "Look, can't you just treat my husband and bill us for today?" "No, ma'am, you will need to pay or I will have to ask you to leave." At this point, I emerge from behind the wall that had the photocopy machine. "Hey, is everything okay?" I say. Nicole tries to explain the situation, even though I've heard every single word, when the entitled Karen cuts off Nicole. "This rude girl is refusing to have my husband seen. Isn't it your job to see anyone who is hurt or sick?" Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, that you've gotten confused. You see, we are an urgent care clinic. My provider and I will gladly see your husband as long as your insurance is within network. Our beautiful Karen replies, we are in network. Now treat my husband. Ma'am, I've been listening to your conversation with my administrative assistant, Nicole. Although you're in network, you're refusing to be treated in our clinic because you're refusing to pay for the treatment. Now, I don't care for your tone or how you've spoken to my administrative assistant. I think it's best you leave. You will need to take your husband to the nearest ER for treatment, as they have measures set in place for individuals like yourself. How dare you speak to me like that? I demand to see the provider. Ma'am, as I am the head nurse here at this moment, I'm the only provider in the facility, and I refuse to see you. You cannot do that, she whimpers. It goes against your Hippocratic oath to take care of the sick and injured. Ma'am, I want to make it clear. I'm not refusing you. You are refusing me. Now, you're refusing to leave my clinic. Please leave, or I will have you escorted out of this building by the police. But you, she stammers out while being dragged by her husband. This isn't the last you've heard from me. I will tell everyone I know how terrible this place is. I'm sorry, Bob says. Thank you for your time. I fully understand. He says sheepishly, as if he is embarrassed, turns to his wife. That's enough. Since this incident, Bob has returned for follow-up treatment on his injury. He is the sweetest man and refuses to bring his wife back to our clinic. I apologize profusely for the incident and how things transpired. While caring for him, I found out that he had a trailer hitch fall onto his foot. He suffered a minor sprain in his foot, and Bob has been making a full recovery. Do you agree with this comment? $40 for a medical treatment like that probably cost hundreds or thousands without insurance. How dare you? Darn, Karen, how dare you pay for something that you're supposed to pay for? Today I screwed up accidentally catching a cheater during a test retake, posted by Thy Crow. So I've been pretty sick the past few days prior to the events and had to retake a test. How this goes: there are specific days during the week where you can retake a test after school hours. There's a couple people that watch over to make sure that people don't cheat. Anyway, I was minding my own business filling up a test. I finished well before the others because my test was just short. As I get up to hand in my test, I make eye contact with this girl in my gym class. She has her phone open in the book she's supposed to be using for her own test. It's clearly visible, at least when you stand up. So, to warn her that she'll probably get caught, I gave her a hide that crap motion with my hands to try and warn her. She just smiled and giggled a bit in her seat as though she was proud to be cheating or something. Anyway, as I hand in the paper, one of the teachers who's supposed to check on the students got distracted and started talking to me about some of my work. Well, I'm an artist and she commissioned me a couple of times. And I was also enthusiastic, so I tagged along the conversation, while whispering, of course. We chatted for maybe about a minute or two, and suddenly the teacher I'm with yelled, "Hey, you!" and points to the girl that's cheating. "I saw you. Give me your papers and leave right now." So I turn around because I'm curious of the situation. The girl that was caught was glaring at me so much. Holy crap. She then yells at me, "You witch!" And honestly, I was surprised and I kind of went like, huh? The girl gets annoyed at me and yells at me to leave. I didn't want to bother the other students in the class by letting her yell at me, so I left. Now, since I need to wait for a ride to get back home, I waited in the cafeteria. It didn't take long for her to come see me. She started yelling at me, all angry, calling me a witch, telling me to shut up whenever I tried to explain the situation. Well, I thought it was ridiculous, so I started smiling and laughing, which really didn't help my case. I got home and did my homework as usual. The next day, though, I wanted to try and settle things correctly before she starts spreading rumors. She's one of those gossip girls. So I found her in my gym class and tried to talk things through because I expected her to have calmed down by now. Nope. She went all out on me, cussed me out again, didn't let me explain. She got so heated that she ended up punching me in my mouth. I really didn't expect her to become physically agitated, nor have I ever had a punch thrown at me, so I wasn't able to dodge it. Split my lip open. I didn't want to start a fight, so I continued to talk calmly. This time, though, I was pretty agitated myself, so I responded in a passive-aggressive way, mainly to tell her how ridiculous it is to have gotten mad at me for getting caught cheating, and even more for that punch. I mean, she's 17 for freaking sake. I left the class to get my face cleaned up. Fast forward to today, 3 days later. There's been rumors going on around the school for my snitching. A reminder, I didn't, and I've been getting called names since. a broken lip, and the reputation of a teacher's pet, all because of a misunderstanding. I just hope it dies down a bit because I really don't want to leave things at that. There is no reason for both of us to hate each other. Oh, school drama. Yeah, it's all about misunderstandings and not knowing the full extent of the situation and the ramifications of it. OP, you're fine. The other person is a sore loser because they got caught. But what do you think? Today I screwed up by quitting my dream job that I worked 3 years to get, posted by The Tarded. I just quit the police academy a few days ago, and I had worked so hard to get there. I quit because I think I was having serious anxiety issues and doubts about my happiness in the job. I was fine until a few weeks ago when I started having very negative thoughts about the job, and then I learned we were going to be CS gassed. Part of the training was slightly hazing in the first few weeks. We were pre-exhausted before being smothered. Yes, smothered, not blood-choked. Unconscious. It took minutes, and it was the most horrific experience of my life. It took me into a primal place into my brain where I felt like an animal and I was not myself anymore. I screamed and clawed and bit one of the instructors. I think this made me very worried about being gassed because it made me terrified of not being able to breathe. I'm 26 and recently married with no children. My wife has been amazing and supported me through whatever I've decided to do. I think that my stress and worry is rubbing off on and affecting her though. I'm stressed because I really have no backup plan. I have enough emergency money to pay rent and food for a few months, and I know that I can get a job, and I'm actively searching right now. I'm mainly stressed because I have no idea what the frick I want to do with my life now. I spent the last 3 years working security and going through the process of becoming a police officer. And right now, I just want to get a good career going that pays decent, like $60,000 plus preferred, to live comfortably. I have an Associate's of General Arts degree, and I was thinking about going into accounting or like some other business major and working my way through school in a normal job. I feel I've let my family and my friends down for giving up on what I thought was my dream. Thank you guys for letting me get this off my chest. I don't want to tell my wife or family my feelings about things now because it'll make me look flaky and weak. I feel ashamed and like a failure. Well, I think OP is not a failure because you want to do something and then you try it out and you realize, hey, maybe this isn't for me. I thought it was, but now that I've actually done it, it's not. It's deeper, it's more nuanced and in depth than the surface level. What do you think? Called the cops on HOA Karen. She's going psycho on me with updates. Click the video on your screen. You don't want to miss this one, and I will see you there.